So welcome back to this. This is the final one. I hope so. Would be the final lecture in the series of understanding the mathematics behind the state space realizations. So today we are going to cover a very important topic, which is the understanding of the eigenvalues and eigenvectors and the implications of that understanding in the SPRs. So let us begin straight away. So we have already discussed that when we are in a certain space, so suppose in this example that you see in the screen, we are in the two-dimensional space. So it can be any n-dimensional space. However, for any such space, we can always have a transformation A. We can always have this transformation A, whose job is basically to transform the one vector x from this state space and bring it to a vector y. Now, if this A matrix is a square matrix, then it brings this y in the same state space. It does not reduce or increase its dimension. It is in the same state space. So it is like x was here due to the transformation A, it got transferred to y. This happens for almost all of the vectors which you can find in the state space. So this is a general thing to happen, which is the x gets shifted, translated, rotated, whatever, some shift happens and it gets shifted from its original position and it lands upon a new position y. Now imagine that there are certain vectors. Suppose there is a vector v. Suppose there is a vector v. So this much. So suppose there is this vector v, which when applied on the same transformation A. So if I apply the same transformation A, it is going to produce a new vector. Of course, it is going to produce a new vector. However, we will find that for this particular special vector, it is the new vector is in the same line as the old vector. So it is along the same direction as the vector v. The new vector AV is the new vector. It is in the same line, or it is in the same space as the space spanned by v. V is spanning this line, right? V is spanning this line, which is, you can call it as a space also. So it is in the same space of v. It is not shifted away from it. It is in the same line as v. It is aligned with v. So that means basically what? It is simply a scalar multiple of v. The scalar lambda, here I have taken it as greater than 1. It can be less than 1, positive less than 1, then it will shrink basically its length. It can be negative also, which means it can reverse its direction, but it will be along the same line. If your lambda is negative, then it will reverse its direction, but it will be along the same line. So this spatial vector, such spatial vectors can be there in the state space. These spatial vectors are termed as eigenvectors. This is a mathematical phenomenon, as you can understand. This concept of eigenvector and associated eigenvalue is a mathematical phenomenon. So you see, this is simply we are dwelling in a vector space. It has nothing to do with any real world application or anything. So this is simply a mathematical phenomenon where in a certain space you will find such vectors which when suffering the transformation A does not change its direction, it is in the same direction, it only changes its length by the amount lambda. So the amount by which it changes its length is called the eigenvalue. So lambda is the eigenvalue by which it changes its length, and such vectors V which does not suffer any distortion. So this is the distortion for x to y. This does not suffer any distortion in its angle or in its direction. It is called eigenvector. Whose property is this eigenvalue and eigenvector? Is this the property of the space? No, it is the property of the transformation. It is the property of the transformation A, not the space, not this two-dimensional space. If you change this A, you take some other A, then this vector might be distorted. There may be some other vector V, maybe like this one would be the new vector V for that new matrix A, which will not suffer a distortion. So this eigenvalue and eigenvector is a property of the transformation A, not the space, not the vector space. It is a property of the transformation. So this is the idea of eigenvalue and eigenvector, only this. However, there is a lot of implication on this idea of this idea. What is the implication? Let us go one by one. So now if you are asked, so certain things will go together actually. So if you are now asked to find out the eigenvalue and eigenvector of a matrix A, and in general it can be any non-square matrix also. However, for the purpose of our course, we will be concerned with square matrices. So if you are asked to find out the eigenvalues and eigenvectors of a square matrix, then this is the equation which you would write down. This A you know, V and lambda you don't know. So you would be trying to find out that certain vector V and that scalar lambda which satisfies this equation. Correct? This is what you are trying to find out if you are asked to find out the eigenvalue and eigenvector of the matrix A. So how to go about this? So you can try to fit some vector and see if this property is getting satisfied or not. But depending on the, so you can understand, even in a two-dimensional space there are countless such vectors to choose from. So this is not the good option to go ahead with it. Correct? So what is the solution then? We do some manipulation in this equation and come to the technique by which we can find out the eigenvalues and eigenvectors. So from this equation you can understand that you can also write this as lambda IV. So if you now do a take this to the left hand side, then you will get A minus lambda I V equals to 0. This equation you will get, right? This equation you will get. Now from this equation, so if your V has to be a non-zero vector, so you see here we are trying to look for non-zero vectors. Basically 0 is of course a solution, but that is the trivial case. We are trying to look for non-zero solutions. So if V is a non-zero vector, what does that mean? That means that this matrix A minus lambda I does not have full rank. We already studied about this, about finding the null space of a matrix, and there we saw in general in the question of finding a null space of a matrix, suppose M, we are actually trying to find out those vectors x which satisfy this equation, those vectors x which are not equal to 0 and satisfy this equation. That gives us the null space. These x's gives the basis of the null space. And when we have such non-zero x's, when we have such non-zero V, that means this matrix M is not full rank. That means this matrix A, or in this case this matrix A minus lambda I, will not have a set of linearly independent vectors, which means some of its columns will be dependent on the other columns. How many columns are dependent on the other columns will depend, actually will depend on this matrix A. However, once you have this information that this matrix A minus lambda I is having that property that its rank is not full, you can immediately lead to a conclusion. You can immediately lead to a conclusion, which is, so we want A minus lambda I V not equals to 0 for V not equal this equals to 0 for V not equals to 0. This immediately leads to the conclusion that your rank of A minus lambda I is not full, which means that the determinant of A minus lambda I would be equals to 0. Same thing, this you know from matrix theory. Same thing, the matrix is singular in nature. The matrix determinant would be 0. So from this equation now you will be able to calculate lambda or solve lambda from this equation. The appropriate word would be solve. Solve lambda by forming this equation, and this would be a polynomial, right? This would be a polynomial which gives you this lambda. Every matrix A, whatever matrix you can form, will always have this polynomial. You can always form this polynomial. This is what is lambda here. Lambda is just a scalar variable. Now just look at this equation, don't need to bother from where it is coming. Just look at this equation, it will simply give you a polynomial in lambda, and you have to simply find out the values of lambda for which that polynomial is equals to 0. That's what you need to find out. What are those things called for which a polynomial becomes 0? They are called the roots of the polynomial. So the roots of this polynomial is basically the eigenvalues of the matrix A. Try to differentiate now between roots and eigenvalues. We generally in control systems we use these two terms very interchangeably, but they are not the same thing. Roots are always of a polynomial. Eigenvalues are always of a matrix. In this case, they are the same. The roots of this polynomial is the same as the eigenvalues of the matrix A. And by the way, this polynomial is a special polynomial which is called the characteristic polynomial. The characteristic polynomial is the determinant A minus lambda I. We make it 0 to solve for the eigenvalues of the matrix A. So, we are finding out the roots of the polynomial of the characteristic polynomial to find, and these are the same as the eigenvalues of the matrix A. So, this is one way of finding out the eigenvalues of the matrix A, and this is the most used way, and this is the most general way. This will always work. This will always work. But as you can understand that it might be a bit tedious sometimes. If you have a large matrix, it will be difficult for you to even form the polynomial, because calculating the determinant will also become lengthy, and after forming the polynomial, solving for lambda will also become tedious. However, if there is a method to do that, it can always be done, and your software algorithms are basically solving this way. In some special cases, actually using the idea here, this idea, in some special cases you will be able to figure out the eigenvalues of the matrix by looking at the matrix itself. I will probably not go into that very much, let's see, but this is a certain way of finding out eigenvalue, and if you don't know any other way, you have to go through this, go via this way, via this route. Now this is about finding the eigenvalue. What about the eigenvector? Very easy now. You have found out the lambda i's. So what you have got? You have found out the lambda I, right? So you have you know that with the associated lambda I, there is a vi eigenvalue. So suppose you got so many different lambdas. Okay, how many eigenvalues you will get? You will get n number of eigenvalues as the order of the matrix is. You will get n number of eigenvalues. Associated to this n number of eigenvalues, there are eigenvectors. Now I am not commenting on the number of eigenvectors, because it's not always n. It's not always n. For the purpose of this particular lecture, we will suppose that the number of eigenvectors are also n. This is a special case, not a general case. We will study about the general case in the next part of our course. For this particular lecture, we will concern that every lambda I is having a eigenvector vi associated with it. In that situation, what you are getting is basically this: a vi equals to lambda I vi. How to calculate vi now? You know. So starting from here, now you are at a better position. Now you know both a and lambda I. So your job is to find out vi only. But still it is tedious, because what is the way you would go ahead? You will put your matrix A, you will assume a vi as, suppose like v1, v2, v3, v4, or x1, x2, x3, x4, something like that. This side also you will assume that, and you will try to see what is the xi, x1, x2, x3, x4 that fits this equation. Maybe you will do some algebraic manipulation and try to solve for x1, x2, x3, x4, but you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. You look at this equation, your lambda I and vi would satisfy this equation for sure. So you also have this lambda I vi equals to 0. So what you are trying to get? You are trying to get the vector or the vectors. In general, you are trying to get the vectors vi which is satisfying this equation, or in other words, you are trying to get the null space, the basis of the null space of this vector, this matrix. How to get the null space of a matrix? We have to do the column operation on the columns of this matrix. Can you calculate the columns of this matrix? Yes, of course, because I know what is A, I know what is lambda I. So I can always calculate what is A minus lambda I. I will get the columns of the matrix A minus lambda I, and then I will do the column operation on this matrix, on the columns of this matrix A minus lambda I, and I will readily get Vi. So you will get the Vi also associated with lambda I. So I will get every lambda I Vi pair now. It is calculable very much. If you are given the matrix A, you are starting with matrix A, right? You had nothing else with you, but just looking at the equations, doing a small maths here and there, very easy manipulations. Now you are at a position where you will be able to calculate lambda I and Vi for the matrix A. So all lambda I Vi pairs will be known to you now. So you are now having those vectors Vi. If we apply the transformation A on these vectors, they are not going to change their direction. They are going to align in the same direction. Only there they might suffer some shrinking or elongation, or even like suffer a 180-degree rotation. That is, these things are what it is going to suffer, nothing else. What is the implication in control systems? What is the implication of this in control system? Huge implication, huge implication. What is our system equation? The unforced system equation, the homogeneous equation, homogeneous state dynamics, x dot equals to Ax. This is our homogeneous state dynamics for an LTI system, correct? Suppose that I start at a certain x, which is the eigenvector of the matrix A. Suppose I have this two-dimensional system where I start somewhere on this vector V, which I know is the eigenvector. I have started on this vector, anywhere in this vector you can start. What will happen then? What will happen? Since this is on the eigenvector, my x would be some k times the V, right? So this would be some k AV. What is AV? AV is again some k lambda V. So if this is one of the vectors, suppose this is the V1, and I know this lambda 1 and V. What is the implication? Now this is also k times your x, since kv1 is x, kv1 is x. So what happens? Immediately you see this matrix equation, now becomes like this: x dot equals to kx, simply the vector x. So what happened? Basically here what happened, the ax is sorry, this would be lambda, sorry, this would be lambda x. Your x dot is lambda x. What is x dot? X dot is the direction, x dot is the velocity, x dot is the rate of change of my position vector x. So what do you get? You get the rate of change of your position vector proportional to the position vector itself. So the direction of x dot is along this same eigenvector. So if you start on the eigenvector, your velocity is also in the same direction as the eigenvector, or in the exact opposite direction. So you will never leave the eigenvector if you start on this eigenvector. That is the huge implication. So you are never leaving the eigenvector if you start on the eigenvector. So the eigenvectors are like invariant. There is a term called invariant spaces. So these are like the invariant subspaces, of the state space. So not using so much technical terms, the invariant subspace and all, what do plain and simple mean? Plain and simple we mean that my position vector is only getting elongated and shortened. I am able to only go along this vector, and I cannot go anywhere else in the state space. If I start here, I cannot go anywhere else in the state space. This happens for all the eigenvectors. So if you are at another on another eigenvector, suppose there is another eigenvector, so this one is v1, suppose you have another eigenvector here which is v2. If you start on v2, you will remain on this particular line. So your x dot will remain on the eigenvectors if you start on these eigenvectors. That's the reason why these are also called modes, the modes of the system. Modes of system, basically what we try to mean is the modes of motion of the system, modes of dynamics of the system. So the word mode is used, which is not exactly equal to the exactly same as the eigenvalue, not exactly same as the eigenvector, but it is a certain mode of operation sort of thing. It is a certain state of being. So the mode of motion, so this is a mode of your system's evolution. So the system evolves in this direction. In general, wherever your x is, so here your x was here, so since x dot is ax, so your x dot is in this is ax, this is x dot, then so if this is x dot, then your direction of motion is this one, y, so you move in this direction a bit from here to here, and then you again recalculate what your x dot would be at this point, and again you move in that direction. This is always happening, correct? However, every vector x dot that is here in this plane, right? Now every vector x dot is basically can basically be composed of the eigenvectors. In general, in an n-dimensional space, there will be n number of eigenvectors. There are other cases also, but there will be n number of eigenvectors. There will be always n number of eigenvectors. However, always they will not be paired with the eigenvalue. That is a special case actually. However, in a n-dimensional space, there will always be n number of eigenvectors. So we say that the motion of the system is having its modes along the eigenvectors, because every motion, every velocity can be constructed from these eigenvectors, and these eigenvectors, as you have seen, are having independent motion. If you start on this eigenvector, you are independent of every other thing happening in this space. You will move along this eigenvector forever. It is independent of whatever else is happening in the space. Your motion is independent of everything else. So the motions along the eigenvectors are independent of each other, are independent modes of motion. That's why these are called modes. So I touched upon eigenvectors and eigenvalues in a general mathematical notion, and then we tried to understand how we go about to find out the eigenvalues and eigenvectors, and then we saw the implication of eigenvalues and eigenvectors in the control system paradigm when we are using state space realizations. At that time, the implication of eigenvalues and eigenvectors, very important. Remember this. And this is a very basic understanding which is not there in many students coming from many different institutions around the world. This is a very basic understanding which we don't develop within ourselves for whatever reason, but I have encountered many people who are not having this understanding in them, even when they are working in the control systems background. This understanding is very important. Reiterating, what is the implication in control systems paradigm, SPR paradigm? That these are the vectors. If we start our system on any of the eigenvectors, we will always remain on that eigenvector. That's why these are independent modes of motion. And the mode of motion, so when we understand what is a mode of motion, that we are confined to an eigenvector, then actually we define the mode of the motion with the eigenvalue associated with the eigenvector. So sometimes you will see in literature they are referring the eigenvalue as the mode, which is not technically correct. However, once we have the understanding what we mean by the mode of motion, then we can say yes, my mode of motion is -2 or +3. That means -2 means I am on an eigenvector and I am always decreasing my length by -2. Sorry, my velocity is always -2 of the present position. And if my mode is +3, that means my velocity is always 3 times my present position. And this gives an implication now. This gives the implication that the eigenvalue, whether it is positive or negative, will determine actually the direction of movement of the system. So if the eigenvalue here, suppose you have a lambda, so the lambda here is less than 0, that means my velocity vector, this one, would now be in this direction, and the blue one is for lambda greater than 0, the green one is for lambda less than 0. The direction of velocity is in this direction. So what is happening? You are moving towards 0. You are moving towards 0. If you had started let me use green here. If you had started this side somewhere and your lambda is less than 0, then also your velocity will be in this direction. It is always opposite to the direction of your position vector. If lambda is less than 0, your velocity is opposite to the position vector. It is always trying to drag you towards the origin. Opposite thing happens when your lambda is greater than 0. So you are trying, the system is trying to push you further away from the origin. Push you further away from the origin. Now with the previous understanding of equilibrium point, which you know is the origin of the system. So if the equilibrium point is the origin of the system, then to stabilize a system, we would actually wish that the system by itself moves towards the equilibrium point. Then we would call it a stable system. So if all the eigenvalues of the system are negative, that would mean that along all the eigenvectors, your velocity component is in the direction of the origin, along all eigenvectors. That means whatever velocity you can compose in the general state space, it will be pointed towards the origin. It doesn't matter whether you are on the eigenvector or not, because any velocity component is a linear combination of these velocity components on the eigenvectors. So your velocity component will be towards the origin no matter where you are in the state space. So then I will get a stable system. So to get a stable system, we need our eigenvalues to be negative. So now you understand why we say this thing, that eigenvalues need to be negative. This is the reason for having a stable system. Eigenvalues need to be negative. If you did not know about this, this is where you come to know about it, and also you come to know the understanding behind it. People will always say that we ask this question a lot of times, that what should be the eigenvalues of the matrix A so that your system is stable? Answer is very easy. Lambda must be in the left half plane. Lambda can be a complex value also, but general we are talking about real eigenvalues. So it is mainly we say that give the answer that lambda less than 0 is what we need. But then you ask the question why, then lot of people will not be able to say why. The why part they will not know, and it is not very difficult. This is the reason why. So I hope you understand this. So this is the understanding of the eigenvalues and eigenvectors and their implication in state space realizations. Their implication in state space realizations. Now we will move ahead and try to see something about the eigenvalues and eigenvectors, and we will realize the importance of the diagonal form that we had touched upon in a very initial lectures of this course. The diagonal form, there I stressed this fact that they are very important. So you can understand, you will be able to understand now why they are important. By the way, I hope now you understand that given any matrix A, so your job, so even if you come from a transfer function without knowing the roots of the characteristic polynomial, once you come to the state space realization, you will get the matrix A. Now you can always calculate the eigenvalues of the matrix. Yes, this is again the characteristic polynomial which you have to solve, but you will, if you understand this equation basically a bit with a bit more intent and having a deeper insight, then you will be able to figure out the eigenvalues in certain cases, not all cases, but in certain cases you will be able to figure out the eigenvalues by looking at the matrix. Let's see the implication of this equation, this one a so yeah, a b equals to lambda v. A v equals to lambda v is satisfied by all pairs lambda I vi. Satisfied by all pairs lambda I vi. Supposing there are n number of supposing the order of the matrix A to be n, I can also write a v1 equals to lambda 1 v1 up to a vn equals to lambda n vn. This would give me in combination a v1. A v1 is what? A vector or a matrix? It is a vector. So if my A is n cross n, this is n cross 1, right? So a v1 is n cross 1. So I stack up these n cross 1 vectors and form a n cross n matrix. Lambda 1 v1 is what? An n cross 1 matrix. I can again do the stacking up here, v1 up to lambda n vn. Can I write this equality sign? Yes, because the first column is same as the first column here. The second column is the second as the second column. The last is the same as the last column. So all the columns are same. So these two matrices are equal. we can write this as A V1 Vn. We can do this. I hope you understand that this is the same as this. This thing can be written as this actually. V1 to Vn lambda 1 0 dot 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 0 0 dot 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 0 lambda 2 lambda n, all others are 0 here actually. This is a diagonal matrix with the eigenvalues of A in the diagonal elements. This is the diagonal matrix. This is a diagonal matrix with the eigenvalues of A in its diagonal elements. So this is the diagonal form of any matrix, right? So when we studied the diagonal form, we saw this matrix coming up. So if we know the eigenvalues or the roots of the characteristic polynomial, we would be able to form this matrix. By the way, I hope you realize that this is equals to this thing. So if you don't realize it right away, spend some time, you will come to the realization. Just look at it for a minute or so, you will be understanding why these two are equal. So now so this matrix is the matrix that we found out in our diagonal form. This matrix, if we had the knowledge of the roots of the characteristic polynomial, which are nothing but the eigenvalues of the matrix A. So from any matrix A, we don't know the actual form of A. See that we have started from any A actually. We don't know what exactly the arrangement of the elements of A are. But we have come to the conclusion by understanding this theory, what theory we have discussed, that we can always find out the eigenvalues and we can always identify the eigenvectors. So I can always actually diagonalize a matrix A. I can always diagonalize a matrix A given the knowledge of the eigenvalues. Yeah, the eigenvalues I need to know. But when I know the eigenvalues, I will be able to diagonalize the matrix A. And what would be my similarity transformation? My similarity transformation is this. This is called the modal matrix, by the way. And it is comprised of the eigenvectors associated with the eigenvalues in order. So you are writing down the eigenvector of eigenvalue lambda 1, then the eigenvector of eigenvalue lambda 2. So here V2, then V3, then up to Vn. So you simply stack up the eigenvectors of the eigenvalues and form the modal matrix. This is called the modal matrix, which is the matrix formed by stacking up the eigenvectors of a matrix A. However, this modal matrix basically serves as the similarity transformation which transfers the matrix A to the matrix lambda. So in general, actually this is, if you use the proper notations as used in many textbooks, this is the notation. This means that it is a diagonal matrix. This is the lambda, capital lambda in Greek. So this means that it is the diagonal matrix comprising of the eigenvalues lambda in a diagonal. This is the modal matrix. Why the modal matrix is the similarity transformation? I am sure that you have already seen that this is nothing but M inverse AM equals to lambda. So P inverse PM, P inverse AP equals to B. Here B is the P inverse AP equals to A bar is the lambda here, and P is the M here. So if you are asked to find out the similarity transformation which transforms a matrix A to its diagonal form, I now hope that you will be able to calculate that similarity transformation very easily if you are supplied with the eigenvalues, or you are able to calculate the eigenvalues. With the eigenvalues you will be able to calculate the eigenvectors. So this covers the entire theoretical part which I needed to discuss on eigenvalue, eigenvectors, its implication on SPRs, and its relationship with the diagonal form. Now I will show you some numericals which is based on this theory. So my entire objective is basically to find out the lambda and the V. Correct? So I will choose some matrices whose lambda I already know, because I will not go into solving the characteristic polynomial. Whose lambda I already know. I will show you how to calculate the vectors, eigenvectors v1 to vn, and perhaps this you already know, but again just go through the calculation to refresh your memory, and also to I want to highlight the importance of this very essential numerical technique, which is the technique of the column operation, and how versatile it is, and it leads us to everything. Actually, we don't need any other technique. So what we have to do? We have to do the column operation. Suppose my matrix A is given as this. Can you tell which are the eigenvalues? Can you tell which are the eigenvalues? So this is not a class, I have to give the answer. So the eigenvalues are there in the diagonal. Why? Because this is a triangular matrix. So this is one way you can identify the eigenvalues straight away from a given matrix. If the matrix is given as a triangular matrix, then the eigenvalues are sitting on the diagonal. They are sitting on the diagonal. So the eigenvalues are 1, 2 and -1. Of course, you already know what your lambda would be, what your diagonal matrix would be. 1, 0, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 0, -1. It seems a bit strange perhaps at the very first by looking at these two, that how come these elements were there in the lower triangle, but they vanish simply in the diagonal element, and everything else remains as they are. But this happens. This numerically we can show that this will hold. Just wait for some time and go with the numerical calculation in order to see this. So the first thing that we need is to find out the vectors. So I know lambda 1, that I have my lambda 1 equals to 1, lambda 2 equals to 2, lambda 3 equals to -1. I want to know what my v1 is, v2 is, and v3 is. Okay, so I want to know what my v1 is, v2 is, and v3 is. So what to do? So we know this, that for any lambda which is satisfying the which is an eigenvalue, we have this equation valid. For any lambda v pair, this equation is valid. So what I am trying to find out is the vector v which satisfies this equation, a non-zero v. So I am trying to look for the null space of A minus lambda I basically. So A minus lambda I, first I have to figure out what that matrix is. Since I have already found out what my lambda is, I can easily find out what my A minus lambda I is for, suppose lambda 1 equals to 1. So when I am doing it for lambda 1 equals to 1, then my A minus lambda I is 0 0 0 1 1 0 minus 1 1 minus 2. And now with this matrix you can do a column operation in order to understand what would be the null space of this matrix, or which vector spans the null space of the matrix. So suppose we take this as the first pivot, then this remains unchanged, this becomes 0 2 0. So I will copy from my notes which I have cross checked, so probably these are correct. You must do it in pen and paper, so to have a practice of your own. Then I choose this as the pivot, and what I get is this 0 0 minus 1 half minus half 0 0 2 0 1 1 0 0 0 0 minus 1 1 1. So what is your v1? Your v1 is minus 1 1 1. This is your v1, because you understand from this equation that if you multiply this with the first column of this matrix with minus 1, then and the second column with 1 and the third column with 1, then you add them up, you get 0. So that is what is being said here. I hope you have followed the previous lecture, so I don't need to reiterate on this. So I will go straight ahead into finding the v2. So what is v2? v2 is the null space, the basis of the null space for the matrix A minus 2i. So I am going below, so you should remember what your matrix A is. Note it down in your paper and you can easily do the calculation. So A minus 2i would basically be this: minus 1 minus 1 1 minus 1 0 0 1 0 0 minus 3. You want to do the column operation, and you can choose this as your pivot element. You can see that at the very first step you will get the 0 column in the top. 0 3 1 3 times. So what I get as my V2? I get my V2 as 0 3 1. Next, I want to calculate the V3. So this is for lambda 2 equals to 2. Lambda 3 equals to minus 1. Lambda 3 equals to minus 1. So what I am calculating? A plus I basically. A plus I is 2 minus 1, sorry, 2 1 minus 1 0 3 1 0 0 0. So by the way, I have done this in one step, but you should always calculate a minus lambda I. So in this case this is a minus 1. So for lambda 1 equals to 1, this should be the first step that you do. A minus I you should calculate. You'd calculate and find it out as 0 1 minus 1 0 1 1 0 0 minus 2, and then you would come here and do the column operation because you want to find out V1. Similarly, for lambda 2, the first step would be to find out what is your a minus 2i. So you should find out what your a minus 2i is, and equals to this thing, so this matrix, and then you should write down this matrix in a column, in the place of a column operation like this, and then you should solve. Similarly, this is your a plus I, so this is your a plus I. But now you don't have to do any column operation on a plus I, because already one column is 0. Already one column is 0. So now what is the vector actually? You can very well understand what the vector would be for this matrix. So what is that vector V, which makes your a plus I V3 equals to 0? What is this V3? So you can easily figure it out by looking at the matrix, but if you are unable to do it, then you form this equation 130. Maybe in the beginning you would have to form this equation x1 x2 x3 equals to 0, and try to solve for x1 x2 x3. So you will see that both your x1 x2 needs to be 0, and that is also seen very directly from here, because this 2 gets multiplied with x1, but you need the first element to be 0, so your x1 must be 0. Similarly, since x1 is 0, now your 3 gets multiplied with x2, so that x2 should also be 0, and here x1 and x2 are both 0. But what about x3? X3, as you see, this particular column is always 0, so x3 can be basically anything. In another manner, as I already told you, that this operation is basically the first column multiplied by the first element of the vector, second column multiplied by the second element, third column multiplied by the third element. So you can see that the first column is multiplied by x1, second is multiplied by x2, and third is multiplied by x3. So in order to make the result vanish, I need my x1 and x2 to be 0, because they are multiplying with non-zero columns. So those which are multiplying with non-zero columns, I need them to be 0. That which is multiplying with the 0 column, I can make it non-zero. I can keep it non-zero. And since I can choose any non-zero value, I will choose 1 for convenience. I will choose 1. So V3 would be basically 0 0 1. So now you have your v1, v2, v3, so you can form your M. Modal matrix M you can form. What would it be? Your v1 was, if you go back and see, I am looking at my notes and doing, v1 was -1, 1 and 1, v2 is 0, 3, 1 and v3 is 0, 0, 1. This is your modal matrix. You have found this out, very good, but since you are new to the game, you check it. Check. What do you check? Do you do a M inverse? No, you don't have to do M inverse. AM must be equals to M lambda. You know A, you know M, you know lambda. You check whether LHS is equals to RHS. I will quickly do this without going into the steps. This is simply a matrix multiplication. So this was my A matrix and this is my M matrix. And when I multiply them, you have to do the multiplication carefully. I have already done it. I am simply copying down. So you do it so that you also have a practice. Now this is your LHS. Your RHS would be formed by this. What is your lambda? Diagonal matrix, this one, 1 0 0 0 2 0 0 0 minus 1. You will get the same answer. So this is the check. So we have been able to figure out the similarity transformation which brings the matrix A to the diagonal form. One important thing to note now, and that is the peculiarity of diagonal forms basically, and that is also one reason why we like to go to the diagonal form. So we would again talk a bit about theory and we would talk about diagonal forms. So the peculiarity of diagonal forms. In relationship with the eigenvalues and eigenvectors, of course, diagonal forms. You see, for this particular example, we'll talk about this example, and this is true for any general diagonal matrix also, but let us only look at this example. You would understand that this is true for any general diagonal matrix by going through this example itself. This is my lambda, right? This is the matrix. Suppose my state matrix was originally this, or you have transferred the system to the diagonal form, whatever. So this is the state dynamics that we are dealing with now. So the state dynamics we are dealing with now is, so let us suppose call this as Z. So we are in the Z space transformed. So Z dot is lambda Z. So this is the state dynamics we are dealing with. I want you to figure out what are the eigenvectors in the diagonal form. What are the eigenvectors in the Z state space? So in the Z state space, my question is, what are the eigenvectors Vz? Eigenvalues are the same. Eigenvalue of A and lambda are same because they are coming from the same characteristic equation. However, since the state space has changed, you cannot be sure that the eigenvectors are in the same position. They actually most definitely they change, because what was the eigenvector there, v, that would be some vz in this particular z state space. So my question is, what are the eigenvectors in the z state space? We know how to calculate eigenvectors. We simply, what we have to do, a minus lambda I, and find out its null space, the basis of the null space. Here my A matrix is lambda, so this minus 1 is the first eigenvalue. So I will do this series of operation. What I have, 0 0 0 0 2 0 0 0 minus 1. You can very well understand. So if I represent this by omega i's, suppose, or w i's, so w1 would be 1 0 0. You need, look, which columns are non-zero, second and the third. So which entries of this vector you need to be 0, second and the third. First column is 0, so the first entry can be anything, you take it as 1. This gives only the direction, okay, no need to have any magnitude there, it can be kept as 1. And then lambda minus 2i, I hope you can understand the game here, what is happening. So this is true for any general diagonal matrix, even if these were lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3, whatever. I am simply, for lambda 1 I am subtracting with lambda 1, so I am always getting this form. This form I will get. Here it will be lambda 2, lambda 3, whatever. For lambda 2 I will get the second column 0, so my omega 2 would be 0 1 0 plus I, this would be 1 0 0 0 2 0 0 0 0. What I will get, omega 3 equals to 0 0 1. What I got here as eigenvectors, this is a three-dimensional system. So whatever was my x axis, so actually I my x was here, x1 x2 x3, and there I found out the eigenvectors. You remember v1 v2 v3, so you have to plot the eigenvectors somewhere here, somewhere there, here maybe. I forgot the exact values, so they are v1 v2 v3. You can plot by knowing the exact values of exact entries of v1 v2 v3. You can plot it. But what is peculiar, when I am giving a transformation M to this space, and I am coming to the Z space, then what happens, suddenly my eigenvectors are getting aligned to my orthogonal axis of the diagonal space. You can call it the diagonal space. It's not a diagonal space as such, but it is the Z space where we are having the A matrix in the diagonal form. So suddenly our eigenvectors are getting aligned to the orthogonal axis. This is true for actually any diagonal matrix. So if you have a diagonal matrix, its eigenvectors are aligned to the orthogonal axis of the state space on which the matrix is operating. So you can very well start with a diagonal matrix and say I will be operating any vector on this on a state space with this matrix. The eigenvectors of this matrix will be on the orthogonal axis of the state space. The implication of this in control systems is this, that now every state dynamics z1 dot is becoming lambda 1 z1, z2 dot is becoming lambda 2 z2, z3 dot is becoming lambda 3 z3. The motion along z1 dot is dependent on z1 only. This is very evident now because it is given by the eigenvector. So in this way, basically what happens, the modes of motion also become orthogonal to each other. They are independent as well as orthogonal. By that, what happens in this state space, each of the states, this is the implication in control systems. Now these z1, z2, z3 are basically states of a system in the purview of state space representation. These are now states of a system. So these states, the evolution of these states are dependent on the state only and not anything else, not any other states. And they are simply scaled by the corresponding eigenvalue. Simply scaled by the corresponding eigenvalue. So that becomes the implication here. So that is why it is easier and it is more fun also to work in the diagonal form. So we would like to diagonalize our system whenever possible. In the diagonal form, everything sort of opens up, everything reveals in a very independent fashion. So everything is as if independent of the other things. So we can analyze each of the dynamics separately. That is the beauty of diagonal form. So we would like to go to the diagonal form. This is an intention with which we would like to work. And when we are having that intention in our mind, we would actually face a problem that always we will not find that a matrix we will be able to diagonalize a matrix all the time. That means what I am saying is that we would find that every time we would find that all the matrices A are not diagonalizable. What do you need for a matrix to be diagonalizable? You need an independent eigenvector for a eigenvalue. So if you have noticed that with the eigenvectors I am forming the similarity transformation M. So all these eigenvectors must be independent of each other. I cannot have one of it dependent on other two or like that, because then this will not be invertible and I need it invertible. Okay, so this matrix, this similarity matrix must be non-singular. It must be of full rank. So all the eigenvectors must be independent of each other. But there might be cases where there will be cases where we will find that the eigenvectors are not independent. This happens when we are faced with the problem of repeated eigenvalues. We know what is repeated eigenvalue. So you will get two eigenvalues having the same value. Suppose this is not -1 but 1, then you will have two eigenvalues same 1. Then you will find that this diagonalization would not be possible. Then what to do? That would be covered in the next part of our course, where you deal with a general idea of diagonalization, which is called the Jordan form, not the diagonal form but the Jordan form. So you would look into Jordan forms in part 3, but before that I would like to take you through another example of a 4x4 matrix, and here I will give you a certain insight into how to figure out eigenvalues when you are simply looking at the system, looking at the A matrix, and how to get that information about the eigenvalues. It is not always possible, but it is sometimes possible. So let us look at the 4x4 matrix. So my A here is this. So here, what are my eigenvalues? That is the first question. So you see, there are certain things you should note first here, that the you see that a particular column or a particular row, if you have all zero entries apart from only one, and that non-zero entry is in the diagonal, then that is one eigenvalue. If you have all entries as 0 and one entry as non-zero, then that is an eigenvalue. So you can probably write these rules down, and why this is actually happening, you can investigate into the basic equation for finding out eigenvalues and eigenvectors, which is A minus lambda I b equals to 0. And if you investigate on this equation, you will be able to figure out why this is true all the time. So I will not spend time on that. So the first eigenvalue I am able to extract is lambda 1 equals to 6. The second eigenvalue I will be able to extract if I notice that the sum of entries along a row or along a column or along a row is same. So you see that the sum along the rows are all 10. So if that sum is same, then that becomes the next eigenvalue. The third way that I would be able to extract eigenvalues is if I notice that there are dependent columns in this matrix. So here you notice that this column first plus third is equals to twice the second column. So then one of the eigenvalue would be basically what? So when you have dependent columns, you are losing your rank, your determinant is becoming 0. So of course one of the eigenvalues must be 0. We can also basically straight away directly write down the eigenvectors associated to these. When we have this sort of situation, when you have all columns 0, all entries 0 except the diagonal entry in a particular column, then the v1 is all 0 except that diagonal entry. So this is the first diagonal entry, so that diagonal entry will be non-zero, others will be 0. So if suppose this 6 this was in the second column like 0 6 0 0, then your 6 would have been an eigenvalue, but v would be 0 1 0 0 that time. Next, when you have this sort of a situation, when the rows, this is true for the rows only, when you have the rows adding up to a particular value like this 10, then you can straight away write v2 as 1 1 1 1. These are happening only because a column, so you can write v1 as 1 0 0 only because a column was having all zeros except the diagonal. You can write v2 as 1 1 1 1 only because the rows were adding up to 10. If it were the columns, it would not be straightforward. If this was happening for a row, this would not be straightforward. You have to calculate. This is the case now. Two columns are equal to the twice this column. So I guess you would appreciate me writing this directly. V3 would be 1 minus 210, because 1 times the first column minus 2 times the second column, 1 times the third column, and 0 times the fourth column would become 0, would give me 0. That is what I am trying to find from here, from this equation. These are also coming from this equation. You need to investigate a bit closely. So we get 3 eigenvalues, but there are 4 eigenvalues. So if you have a situation where you have all eigenvalues but one eigenvalue, then you can apply this rule, which is the sum of the eigenvalues is equals to the trace of the matrix. So in this case we have all eigenvalues save 1. So I have 6 plus 10 plus 0 plus my lambda 4. That would be the trace of the matrix. Trace of a matrix is sum of the diagonals. So this is 6 plus 4 10 plus 4 14 plus 7 21. So lambda 4 immediately becomes 5. Can I write down the eigenvector directly? No, I have to do the column operation here. So doing the column operation, what is my a minus lambda 4i? I have to compute a minus lambda 4i. So I compute it here and I am writing it down directly in the column operation. So this is the a minus 5i, basically a minus 5i. So this is my matrix. So I take this as the pivot element, first pivot element, and I am simply copying from my notes, so you be You do it on your paper with me, and you'll get this particular columns which I am getting now. So this was quite easy. Now I take this as my second pivot element, and you will see that I will already make a column vanish with this. These remain the same. So what is minus 2 I need to do, right? So 10 coming here, minus 5, 0, minus 2 if I do this is 6, minus 2, 1, 0 is 0, and I need to again do minus 2 because I want to vanish this, and now you see this total column gets vanished. And minus 2 means I am having 10 here, I am having minus 2 here, I am having 0 here, 1 here. So my V5 is equals to 10 minus 2, 0, 1. You should do a cross check at every place where you are doing a computation. You should do a cross check whether V5 satisfies this equation. So I leave it with you. So you should check whether a minus 5i into v into this v5 is 0 or not. So I hope you will do the cross check. So without spending time on the cross check of this, I now form my m vector directly. So my intention is to find out the diagonal matrix as well as the similarity transformation. So with the knowledge of all the eigenvalues and seeing that they are distinct to each other, they are not repeated, so I can easily form the diagonal matrix. So it will be simply 6, 10, 0 and 5 in the diagonals, and all other are 0. But to form the similarity transformation, I need to also find out what are the eigenvectors. So now I have found out all the eigenvectors. Sorry, I have written this as V5, this V4, this V4. So I have found out all the eigenvectors, and I will simply stack them up. So my V1 was so I am stacking them up here. My V1 was 1, 0, 0, 0. My V2 was 1, 1, 1, 1. V3 was 1 minus 2, 1, 0, and this last one V4 is 10 minus 2, 0 and 1. Correct? Yeah. So I have also found out the similarity transformation. But now what you should do, actually you should do a verification that am equals to m lambda. You should cross check this and figure out that this is holding true. So I leave this as your homework, or you can do it in pen and paper. So I am not doing it in this lecture. So it has already become a bit long. Now you can actually verify this in your rough copy, and to your own satisfaction you will find out that am will become equals to m lambda. Only one thing, be very careful that the order of the eigenvectors must be same as the order of the eigenvalues in the diagonal, otherwise it will not match. So the order of the eigenvectors must match with the order of the corresponding eigenvalues. So with this I end the lecture. So it has been it is a very important lecture. I request you to, if it is needed, you go through this lecture more than once, even more than twice, as many times as required, but embed the concepts of this lecture in your mind very firmly about the eigenvalues and the eigenvectors, and what is the implication in the control systems state space realization paradigm, and after that why the diagonal form is so important. So all these are packed in this lecture. So thank you for your attention. We will begin with basically the Jordan forms from the next part of our course. Thank you.